The Legiones Astartes are commonly credited as the greatest heroes for the Imperium of mankind during the Great Crusade, Horus Heresy, and modern era. However, sometimes it was the regular humans who wrote themselves into legend with their actions, mindsets, and deeds. One of these individuals was Malcador the Sigillite, Regent of Terra, First Master of the Assassins, creator of the chaplains within the Space Marine Legions, and the man responsible for the Inquisition and Grey Knights. Quite the track record, if I say so myself, and that wasn't even everything this guy did. Today, we shall tell the story of possibly the greatest non-Astartes human in Imperial history, from his origins, to his actions, to his eventual death. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis, and welcome to 40k Stories. The origins of Malcador are shrouded in mystery. According to the man himself, he was the sole survivor of an ancient order called the Sigillites. This order sought to recover and preserve humanity's greatest and most powerful artifacts, but there is almost no evidence aside from Malcador's word that he was one of them. He reportedly possessed some artifacts of old Earth, such as the Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci, and it is said that the Imperial Palace itself was built upon the former Sigillite stronghold. But without confirmation in Sigillite records or similar, it is impossible to know for sure. It is rumored by some that he was in fact a descendant or relative of the Emperor, but none know the exact truth now, save for the Emperor, who isn't exactly the chattiest, being a skeleton and all that. Whatever the case, Malcador appeared by the Emperor's side during the Unification Wars, when Terra was united and the Techno-Barbarians were destroyed by the brutal Thunder Warriors. Malcador was different to many of the Emperor's advisors. He was not of noble birth, nor was he a military-minded man like the Proto-Astartes. Rather, he was a learned administrator and advisor, a position he largely maintained and then expanded upon in later years. This also shows that Malcador was extremely long-lived, having been of age during the Unification Wars and still at peak power 1,000 years later, which along with his incredible psychic power is why some suspect links to the Lord of Mankind. His appearance of a sickly frail old man was merely a facade, intended to lull the Sigillites' foes into underestimating him and his power. This was not a mistake many would be able to regret, as Malcador was the second or possibly third most powerful human psyker, with only the Emperor and potentially Magnus the Red being able to beat him in the field of sorcery. During the Great Crusade, Malcador largely remained close to the Emperor or on Terra, as he is not confirmed present in any actions before the triumph of Ullanor. He is said to have been the Emperor's herald and forerunner, often attempting to resolve a situation before the Lord of Mankind was forced to personally intervene, so I assume he was with the main Imperial fleet or just ahead of it throughout the Crusade. He then travelled back to Terra with the Emperor following the appointment of Horus's War Master, assisting with the creation of and then taking his place at the head of the Council of Terra. This fits with his role as administrator. The council basically ran the Imperium outside of the military, which was run by Horus, and so Malcador leading it in the Emperor's stead would be a very suitable choice. Malcador was also present on Kur when the Emperor decided to finally punish the Word-Bearers for their religious tendencies alongside the Ultramarines Legion. The Sigillite travelled to see the Primarch Lorgar Aurelian, but the meeting didn't go very well. At some point during the incident, Malcador was backhanded by Lorgar and sent flying at least 20 meters through the air before crashing back to the ground. Malcador's power was shown in spades, as he not only got up from the Primarch's attack, but was also able to call his staff back into his hands using his psychic abilities alone. Most humans aren't even able to survive a power-armoured Primarch slap, so it's testament to Malcador's resilience and power that he wasn't incapacitated or even seriously injured. Assumedly, the Emperor was not made aware of this, as his reprisal against Lorgar would likely have been even more brutal if he had. Malcador was present during the Council of Nicaea, assumedly anyway, when the Emperor outlawed sorcery and psykers within the Legiones Astartes. It is said that he issued the Chaplain Edict at this time, which created a new rank of Astartes tasked with maintaining order and monitoring for the use of psychic powers within the legions. The chaplain's roles have evolved slightly with time, given that psykers are now allowed again, but at their core they remain a key part of morale for a space marine force. When the Horus Heresy broke out, Malcador was on Terra with the Emperor, presumably taking his place as part of the council. He remained there until Rogel Dawn, Primarch of the Imperial Fists, arrived as per the Emperor's request, but bearing terrible news. Horus, Fulgrim, Angron and Mortarion had turned on the Imperium, as corroborated by the Death Guard captain Nathaniel Garrow, amongst others. With this revelation, the Emperor told Malcador to go and bring together men of character, skill, and determination. These individuals will become investigators, tasked with rooting out and putting down any heresy before it unfolded, like Horus's had. The Sigillite's first stop was Luna, where Garrow and the other survivors of the frigate the Eisenstein were being held as a precaution, after Rogel had brought them there amongst his battleship, the Phalanx. Along with, supposedly, the Sister of Silence Amandera Kendall, Garrow and the Lunar Wolves captain Iacton Cruz were recruited. Whilst Garrow was sent out into the Imperium at large, forming the group known as the Knights Errant as detailed in a previous video, Cruz was kept as Malcador's investigative agent. It could be said, therefore, that Cruz was, technically, the very first Inquisitor. Malcador himself tried to influence the events of the heresy in his role as Master of Assassins. The Officio Assassinorium had been founded at some time during the Great Crusade, though the exact dates are unknown. All the high-ranking members were anonymous, so none knew that it was in fact the Sigillite who led the assassins. When the heresy broke out, many of the Assassinorium's efforts turned to eliminating Horus. 8 individual assassins attempted to slay the War Master, but all failed. The closest they actually got was outside Horus's command tent on the world of Gyges Prime. With this failure, and under the advice of the Custodes Captain General Constantin Valdor, Malcador took the unprecedented step of creating the first Assassinorium execution force, a team of assassins working in concert to try and succeed where the 8 solo assassins had failed. Of course, this team also failed, being slain to the last, but they were at least able to identify and eliminate a counter-assassin put in place by the Chaplain Erebus aiming to kill the Emperor. Execution forces today are incredibly rare, only sanctioned by the High Lords of Terra when an entire sector may depend on it, due to the resources being put on the line. Assassin temples do not recruit many agents, and so committing more than one from multiple temples to a single operation is a very high-risk maneuver. Malcador's great final plan following these failures was not put into motion until the end of the heresy, when Garrow and his fellow knights returned to Terra in the last part of the war. After the rendezvous with Garrow, Malcador led the Knights Errant and the other individuals he or his agents had gathered to the Imperial Palace. There, 12 of them were brought to the Emperor and presented to the Lord of Mankind, 4 regular humans and 8 Astartes. The Emperor agreed with the Sigillite's decisions, and so the Inquisition and Grey Knights began their creation. The 4 humans, Kendall possibly among them as a sister, went to form the investigative organization now renowned and feared across the Imperium, whilst Malcador took the 8 Astartes to Saturn, specifically the moon of Titan. Hidden on Titan was a fully prepared fortress monastery, complete with everything necessary to form a chapter of Space Marines, including weapons, armor, and gene seed. The primogenitor / Primarch of the Grey Knights is unknown, but some believe that their gene seed comes directly from the Emperor himself. Appointing Janus to lead the formation of the chapter, Malcador left Titan and returned to Terra. Before his departure, however, he had one last ace to play. If Titan remained in real space, there was a high chance that Horus would be able to find and destroy the nascent chapter when he arrived to besiege Terra. Thus, Malcador cast one of the most powerful psychic powers ever seen. He had encased Titan with giant Geller fields and protective sigils, and so he hid the moon within the warp itself. Yes, you heard that right. He put the entirety of one of the largest, if not the largest moon of Saturn into the warp. When the heresy was over, Titan would re-emerge into real space just as planned. However, thanks to the time-bending / laws of physics-defying nature of the warp, a lot more time had passed on Titan when it returned, meaning the 8 Astartes left by Malcador was now a full-strength chapter of nearly 1,000. With the chaos of the first founding, it was easy for this seemingly unknown chapter to be added into Imperial records as Chapter 666, The Grey Knights. When Malcador returned to Terra, the final battle was either underway or about to begin. As the Sigillite came before the Emperor for what would be the final time, the Lord of Mankind spoke to him from the Golden Throne. The Emperor had been sat on the throne for the majority of the heresy, warding off the demonic forces that had invaded the human webway and threatened to spill out onto Terra. Only an immensely powerful psyker such as the Emperor was able to keep the rift closed indefinitely, but the time had come when the Emperor could not simply remain upon the Golden Throne. Horus had come, and the end of the heresy was at hand. As such, the Emperor asked Malcador to take his place upon the Golden Throne, protecting the birthplace of humanity whilst the Emperor dealt with the fallen War Master. Whilst Malcador was an incredible psyker, as discussed earlier, the ordeal would be immense and required the entire focus of the Sigillite. It is said that the Emperor spoke to those within the throne room as Malcador took his place on the throne, including Rogel Dawn and Sanguinius. Malcador the Sigillite was no more. Instead, he would always and only be known as Malcador the Hero. And with that, the trio of legends left to fight Horus, and Malcador sat silently upon the Golden Throne, trying desperately to do his duty. The experience sent energy lashing across Malcador's body as the webway in his exertions ravaged his physical form and his mind. By the time that dawn brought the mortally wounded Emperor back to the Imperial Palace following the battle aboard the Vengeful Spirit, Malcador was physically wasting away, clinging to his last shred of life force. The tech priests of the Mechanicum exchanged the Emperor's body with Malcador's, and the Sigillite's corpse turned to dust. However, with his death, the last of Malcador's power transferred to the Emperor, giving the Lord of Mankind just enough power to awaken and issue his last commands to his lieutenants before his eternal internment upon the Golden Throne. They say in the Imperium, only in death does duty end, and Malcador the Sigillite, if anyone was, is the embodiment of that. So ends the tale of Malcador the Sigillite, leader of the Assassinorium, founder of the Inquisition, the greatest human outside of the Space Marines to ever live. His legendary tale is missing a lot of details, but that does nothing to reduce his greatness. Perhaps it's better we don't know the whole truth, as our opinion may become a little less rose-tinted as a result. I hope you all enjoyed today's video, looking at a true legend of the Imperium. Next time, we'll look into the organization he laid the foundations for before he travelled to Titan, the Inquisition. We'll be documenting their role and the various ordos, majoris and minoris, within. I hope you can join me for that, as long as they haven't executed me as a heretic by that point. My name is Michael for Tactica Imperialis. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all again. Goodbye.